Every community in America contributed to the war effort, and Tampa was no exception. While many men and women worked in the city's shipyards and factories, others left behind loved ones and friends to go overseas to do their part in the war. The coming years would impact the rest of their lives. And these are some of their stories. Evelyn Johnson was in her early 20s when she joined the Women's Army Corps, traveling first to England, then France.
Prior to joining the service, I had studied French at an American college, which was St. Augustine's in Raleigh, North Carolina. And at that time, I didn't understand why I had to study French. I didn't think I would ever be able to use it. And I remembered that you never know where you're going and you never know what you need to know. So when I arrived in France, I was all right because I had some French knowledge and I knew how to speak French somewhat. In the United States, there was the segregation, and I had problems with that. That is one reason why I didn't go into officer candidates. I was reluctant because of my attitude towards segregation. I never understood why I couldn't drink out of a water fountain or why I couldn't go into a better restaurant. When we were in Europe, we didn't have any problems whatsoever. We were well accepted. And when I came home, I still had problems with the segregation. Our unit was the 6th AAA Postal Directory Battalion. We were sent overseas to redirect all of the European operations of mail. There was a backlog of almost 2.5 years of mail that had not been processed. And we processed all of it in England, and then we went on to France to do the same thing. And mail is very important to the military. So I felt that I had done a tremendous, tremendous job. When I was off duty and when I was in Paris on leave, I was impressed with the Champs-Élysées and the fountain. And I decided that I was going to dance around that fountain. I've always been able to dance. And I decided that that night I was going to dance around that fountain because I thought perhaps I would never get to Paris again. And I did.
George Drew was working as a ship inspector at the Tampa Shipbuilding Company in 1942 when he quit his job to become a pilot in the U.S. Army Air Corps. On August 27, 1944, during his 13th mission over Europe, the second lieutenant's life was changed forever. During a run over the oil fields at Bleckhammer, his B-24 lost 2 engines, forcing him and his crew of 9 to bail out near the Yugoslavian coastline.
Well, I hit the slipstream and I made one swing back and then come back down backwards, and I hit right on top of the mountain and all the rocks. And I hurt both of my ankles, my back, where I fell backwards, and then put a knot on the back of my head. So I don't know where he got the information, but he had everything. He told me I went on leave, and when I came back to Fort Worth, I was transitioned, told me where I went to pick up my crew, and told me where I did my phase training. And he followed me all the way overseas and to the group. They'd furnished dried cabbage, and they had worms in them. We used the worms for proteins, and they made a soup out of it. And frozen potatoes, Irish potatoes, and we'd have to peel the rotten part of the potatoes off, and then what peeling was good. And the potatoes we put in and mixed it in with the soup to make it a little more flavorful. And I think they drug a piece of meat through it with a string on it, but I never did see any. And if it wasn't for the American Red Cross and the British Red Cross parcel, we'd have starved to death. But it's an experience that you lost your freedom, and when you do that, you've lost everything. One minute you make all the decisions. The next minute your decisions are made for you. And you have to abide by those decisions whether you like them or not. That's about the main thing that we had to follow what they said do, and that's how we got through with it, I guess. That they knew that I was a prisoner of war. They didn't know where I was or anything about it. And that was the hardest part about not hearing anything. And then Patton came in with his tank, and he told the sergeant to roll up that barbed wire. And he did. And then they lowered the flag, and I'll guarantee you there wasn't a dry eye in that whole place. And I was fortunate enough to sign that flag this January. I'd take nothing for the experience, but I'd never do it again. You read the story, God is my co-pilot. Well, I guess it was the faith. It was I can't explain the reasons. The good Lord was with us. That was the whole thing.
Joe and Willie Vila, the oldest boys in a family of 14, were pumping gas in West Tampa when the U.S. was pulled into war. Eager to enlist, 16-year-old Willie and 17-year-old Joe went to Orlando, where they lied to recruiters about their ages. The boys never really worried about the dangers they would face in combat.
You know, we don't think that way.
You don't think that way.
You know why? Because you go to the movie and you see those cowboys, bang, 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 and they stand up again and they go again, right? That's what I thought the war was like. And Guadalcanal, it was hell. Not right away. The Japs, we couldn't find no Jap. And then the aircraft, they used to land on it. And the third day, we were in the aircraft field, the Jap attacked. And that's when the trouble began. A bomb from an airplane, drop bomb, and it got a piece of steel in my hand over here. It's still there, souvenir. And they told me, the doctor, they treat me real good in Australia.
The colonel came over one day and said, Willie, call me Pancho. I said, I want you to be a sniper. Every time we make a landing, you be ready to run forward. So whenever he said Chesty Puller said, go and see what they got out there in front of the hole. He was in Australia, and the colonel always told me, he said, your brother's doing very good. So I got to keep on going.
She said, I'm gonna make a promise to my boys. If they will all come back, I will eat bread, because I'm gonna stop eating bread now. There's an island over there, and before you got to Guadalcanal, it was spelled the name V-I-L-A, Villa. Villa Island. And you know something? He and I used to tell the colonel, you see this island? This belongs to us.
It belongs to me.
He said, the colonel said, why? What name you see there? It's in a map.
Yeah.
And you can see V-I-L-A. That's our island. He said, go.
Now, instead of an island, there's a park in Tampa named for the 7 Villa brothers, who served more than 60 years in combat around the world and returned home alive. Sam Gibbons would one day be a member of Congress. But before that, he was a member of the Army's 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment, where in the early part of the war, he trained new recruits.
Well, the first thing we did as soon as we got them off the train is we took them over to a tower that was about 40 feet high, and we put a little harness on them and it said jump. And if it didn't jump, we put them back on the train. If it did jump, we kept them. I landed, roughly 70 yards, maybe 50 yards from about 15 German soldiers, shooting up in the sky at the airplanes above us. That saved my life. They could hear the airplanes. They couldn't see me because of the camouflage that I wore and because they were night blinded by having fired so much into the darkness. They could hear the planes, so they fired at the planes. And I landed so close to them that when I hit the ground, they could have heard me had they not been shooting. And they could have seen me had they not been night blinded. The infantry unit, the 4th Infantry Unit that landed on our beach, had practically no casualties, of around 100 casualties, where the infantry units that landed on the beaches that had not been opened up from the rear by parachutists had huge casualties, thousands of casualties. So we got our job done, and it worked. So we piled on trucks and moved up to Bastogne, jumped off the back of the truck. That was the only jump we made on that mission, and went out to find the Germans. And we didn't take any time to find them. They were coming at us fast. The whole 101st Division was cut off from the rest of the United States Army for about a week. We ran out of food, we ran out of ammunition, we ran out of gasoline, we ran out of everything but Germans, really. It was cold, cold, cold. The winter set in the snow was up to your rear end. It was so deep. But the snow was to our advantage because the Germans had to use the roads, and the roads were covered with snow, and that made our holding Bastogne a little simpler, but the inclement or horrible weather that we had and the heavy casualties again were very sobering. Well, it turned out to be that it's historic, but at that time I didn't think of it that way. We were just doing the job that we had been trained to do and we've been tasked to do. And, I don't think the average combat soldier acts heroic at all. Some of the things we do turn out to be heroic, but it's a sense of duty, it's a sense of training, it's a sense of not letting your fellow soldier down. Those are the kind of things that run through your mind. And I don't think there was a finer group of soldiers in the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment. I was proud to be a member of it.